1 week season.
1 week season, fam. La Familia. Welcome back. Another week of Wake and Snake here. My name is Mike Johnson, mjohnson86. I am your host. It is Monday, August 4th. First week of preseason games, real preseason games, starts this week with all 32 NFL teams in action beginning on Thursday. Training camps in full swing. We've got all sorts of beat reports. We've got injury news. We've got trade demands. We've got all sorts of contract disputes. A lot going on in the best ball streets. ADPs are flying around. A lot of movement. We got to sort through what is real, what is fake, what do we need to lock into and be thinking about. And that is what we are here for. So without further ado, my esteemed colleague, Billy Gabelman, StatATL. How we doing, Billy?
Mike, good to be back with you. How's life treating you this week?
I'm doing well. It's exactly 1 month prior to the NFL, the first NFL regular season game, September 4th. And yeah, it's hard not to be excited as things wind down. We've been going, over 3 months now talking about these things, and now they are knocking on our door, getting ready to fire up. As always, we are drafting on Drafters today. Want to talk quick about 1 week season. We have our Best Ball Plus product. JM, do you see your inbox this weekend?
Of course.
Leader JM dropped an email in the inbox today. So any OWS, DFS, or Inner Circle subscribers, make sure you check your inbox, because he did send out some updates as we get ready for the season. OWS free members as well. We have a free membership where you can read our NFL Edge and a few other things. So if you have one of those memberships, you should have got the email as well. Of course, we have our Best Ball Plus product. We had a price drop to $59 for our Best Ball Plus product. Our Best Ball Basics is now only $19. So yeah, we've got, if you've been holding out, now is the time to get the, this core part of the preseason to get your fix and kind of wind yourself up for the season. And just like the players ramp up and have their training camp preseason, I like to think even those who aren't as deep in the streets as us in best ball, that this month before can act as a bit of a training camp for your DFS and regular fantasy leagues. So highly recommend you guys check us out. Again, those price drops, check us out, oneweekseason.com. We are drafting today again on Drafters, cumulative scoring format, 20 rounds, full PPR, no bonuses. And yeah, with that, Billy, you were in Alaska last week. Welcome back to the Core 48.
Man, it's good. It's good to be back. It was an awesome trip. It's weird to feel like I want to talk about the weather, but man, the weather in Alaska was kind of crazy. The day we were in Juneau was like a record high temperature for them. It was like 70 degrees, which for Alaska is pretty warm. Mm-hmm. And then 2 days later, we were, enjoying some 30-degree weather, just, a couple hundred miles away. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Cool that you were able to go on that trip. I know a couple of our subscribers in Discord were talking about that they've been there or want to go there. So, pretty cool experience, I'm sure. It felt nice. Feels nice to get back on home turf, though, back in your own territory. So welcome back. We're glad to have you back. We missed you last week. Maximus filled in admirably, but always nice to see your smiling face. A little disappointed we didn't have the glacier background or iceberg background that you were toying with before. Maybe by the end you'll share it with the viewers. But yeah, with all of that said, on to best ball. I guess we could start just talking about, one of the, I guess, bigger situations to keep an eye on as the NFL season, gets ready to kick off is the Bears. DJ Moore just went off the board. Obviously, him and Rome Odunze profiling as the top wide receiver options for Caleb Williams. Going to be a big season for him if he can, kind of bounce back after what was a rough rookie season. So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind. I saw Amarian Hampton went 24th in this draft at the 2-3 turn. That is by far the earliest I've seen him go. So he continues to rise up as Najee Harris has not been on the field yet. He was walking around the practice field, but hasn't been in uniform or pads yet. So that'll be interesting. So there's just a couple of quick notes, but then want to talk about Kenneth Walker, who just went 45th here. He's pretty much always a 4th-round pick. Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, previously with the Saints and a Shanahan disciple. But Walker, he's had an ankle injury that's kind of been nagging, and then he got a rest day Saturday. Didn't participate Friday or Saturday, actually. And Mike McDonald, the head coach, said that he was getting some extra rest for a lingering foot injury. So, I don't know if that's just a slip of the tongue or if the foot is different from the ankle. I guess we'll lead off with that. Do you have any thoughts specifically on Walker, that Seattle backfield situation?
I think, some of the things we talk about behind the paywall, but I think for me, Walker at his ADP is not a guy that I have a ton of exposure to. I feel a lot more comfortable clicking Charbonnet 4 rounds, 5 rounds later. I feel like he's a guy that I'm probably avoiding. I'm just not super high on the Seattle offense in general. I mean, I know there's one guy in particular that you can get much later in drafts on Seattle that you and I are have been big fans of. But for me, that guy is not Walker. At similar ADP, this is the earliest that I've seen Chuba Hubbard go, but he generally goes a full round later than Walker. I'd much rather have Hubbard. Just not to get too player takey, but I'd rather have Alvin Kamara, who generally goes significantly at least half a round to round later than Walker as well.
Yeah, and I kind of mirror your thoughts there in terms of Walker. He feels like he's kind of priced at the highest end outcomes, and there's a lot of uncertainty around it. So kind of mirror your thoughts there on him for sure. At the start of the second round, we had Rome Odunze. I mentioned the Bears quickly. He has been a lot of positive reports coming out of camp that he is going to be a focal point of that offense, which you would expect. Top 10 pick in his second season, kind of ascending. Not surprising at all that he would be a priority for them to have involved. But then just after him, DK Metcalf went off the board. And I did see a report very recently that essentially was saying the expectation, right, is that DK Metcalf and the tight ends are going to be kind of the focal points of the passing game, which, Pittsburgh it's not a situation where we're super excited about the passing game, but at the same time, they don't have a rushing quarterback, which last year with Fields to start the year, and then even Wilson to a certain extent when he came on has some mobility. Aaron Rodgers, very much a pocket passer. And their wide receivers after Metcalf are so poor. We're not at that part of the draft here right now, but I saw that report just earlier this morning. And since the Jonnu Smith trade, we've seen Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu both have their ADPs tank. And I think theoretically those two and Jalen Warren could be after Metcalf, kind of the top receiving option. So, what are your thoughts there? Do you agree, or do you have a preference, I guess, at cost between Jonnu and Freiermuth, or are you just not interested in the situation at all?
I think there's going to be some value on Pittsburgh, despite the fact that it's not a prolific, passing offense. Out of the group that we mentioned, I think for me, it's Warren in terms of exposure. Typically, a guy that you're kind of getting at the late 8th, sometimes mid 9th. Like he kind of goes somewhere between pick 90 and pick 105 in almost every draft that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a reasonable possibility that he's going to lead that backfield, not just in third down work, but in passing down work. But I feel like a guy like Aaron Rodgers is going to want to have a veteran back there for pass blocking. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he's going to trust a veteran versus a rookie to protect him. So I feel like Warren's going to see a lot more of the field than I feel like people are leading on to. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like his ADP and Caleb Johnson's ADP should be flip-flopped. Like Johnson going in the 6th round and Warren going in the 9th round. Like, to me, that feels backwards.
Yeah. And to kind of tag on to that, that has been the report, is that Caleb Johnson has struggled significantly in pass protection. He, of course, came from Iowa, who, they were lucky to throw the ball 10 times in a game. They try to win games with defense and special teams, not much of a passing game at all. So definitely a big adjustment there. And it sounds like he is struggling with that adjustment. So totally concur with that kind of assessment on Warren. JM actually last week on Twitter was kind of giving a breakdown on, he kind of goes into, it's like he's in the Alaskan wilderness to make the connection to your trip. But, he kind of stays away, doesn't really get into all the news and the stuff that we're staying on top of for months, but it allows him to kind of come in with just a clear lens. And that was one of the things he said was his first takeaways, was he couldn't believe, he's very high on Jaylen Warren, and Warren had a down season last year for a variety of reasons, but he's pretty high on him this year and was surprised to see him being like a late 8th round pick in most drafts, it seems. So yeah, concur there. I think there's some value to squeeze out of that. Deebo Samuel, to kind of flow right into the next thing. Deebo Samuel just went off the board, and same person in this draft who took Terry McLaurin a couple rounds earlier. McLaurin has, of course, demanded a trade. The Commanders have responded that they will not trade him, but he is still in his hold-in where he's at camp, so he doesn't get fined. And the tough thing with that is, how do you evaluate? He allegedly he's listed as having an injury, but like, is it real at all? My assumption, I don't think McLaurin will be 30 years old this season. I don't think he really can afford to, like, he can't sit out the season, right? A 30-year-old who just didn't play the last season. It's not like he would get paid next season anyways. I kind of expect they'll give him a pay raise for this year, maybe some security for next year, and that'll be that. So I'm not so concerned about him actually not playing, but it's just a interesting situation. And then James Cook, kind of similar situation, holding in for the Bills. So I guess, are you seeing any value in either of those spots?
Yeah, I mean, my highest drafted player is a Buffalo Bill, and it's not James Cook. I find myself like, and I really have enjoyed taking Ray Davis, and I love that his ADP continues to keep dropping. I just looked; it's 136 right now. I don't know that I understand that when you've got this hold in situation from Cook. So to me, that's a great value spot. I really enjoy taking Deebo Samuel. Again, I know a guy you mentioned earlier. Again, another guy whose ADP I feel like has fallen the last couple of weeks. Not significant, but around half a round. He went in the 7th round. Here again, as you mentioned, to the same drafter who took Terry McLaurin. Those are guys that I like kind of taking at value. Not guys that I have a ton of exposure to. Similar situation. I think he went 56 overall this draft, but like Rashee Rice, like a guy who was frequently going at the 2-3 turn, just like 2-3 weeks ago. Now you can get him in the 5th or 6th round almost every single draft. Like, to me, I just kind of like buying the dip. Same thing with like Najee Harris. Like, with you being one spot in front of me, I doubt that he'll fall to me at a certain spot, but he's got a current ADP of like 160. Like, I don't, and he just continues to keep falling. He's a guy that I don't mind getting exposure to that late, whatever 160 is. I think that's the 14th round. Like, he's a guy that if he does come back and doesn't have any issues with his eye and, becomes even just a 50-50 split in that offense with a team that likes to run the ball behind Harbaugh, like, he's like, I don't want to call him a potential league winner because I don't know that it's a league winner, but it's some awesome value in the 14th round of what he presents.
Right. And, a Najee you're talking about at the end there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's a situation where, Hampton was a 4th round pick, kind of 4 or 5 turn maybe. He went earlier in this draft, but in most drafts we've seen, he's kind of settled in that like mid to late 3rd round range kind of. So he's raised by about a round. Whereas Najee has, he's dropped from, he was like a 8th, 9th round pick, and now he's like a 14th, 15th round pick. So, one way or the other, the overall outlook for that Chargers backfield production hasn't necessarily changed that much. And I think Najee has dropped a lot more than Hampton has risen. So, like you said, kind of an opportunity there, regardless of, our biases or what we may specifically think about the situation. There's opportunity for sure. I want to talk next about, so the drafter here in the 7 hole took Josh Allen in the 3rd round. And his last 3 picks have been 3 Buffalo Bills pass catchers, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, and Dalton Kincaid. The thing that is extra interesting about this to me is the fact that Shakir was diagnosed with a high ankle sprain and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, according to reports out of Buffalo. Basically, he's out for the rest of the regular season or the rest of the preseason. Sounds like they are somewhat confident, kind of expect him to be back for the start of the season, but I would say that is far from a certainty. So yeah, that's some pretty big news on one of the league's best offenses. Obviously, I think his ADP is right around pick 80, so he fell about 10 spots. Basically, Keon Coleman and him kind of have flipped in this specific draft from what their ADPs were. I guess, do you have any thoughts or takeaways on that Buffalo situation? And then, feel free to share. I just took Joe Mixon. If you want to talk about the Texans as well, you can fire away at that too.
Yeah, I mean, at cost, like the Buffalo wide receivers in general, like Shakir especially, is a guy that I'm kind of staying away from. Like, I don't see a ton of upside in his game. And certainly around where he's been going, traditionally he's been going in the 7th round. And there are just guys that have such higher potential upside than him, in my opinion, in that same range. Coleman, again, 2nd-year guy, like we could certainly see a spike from him this season. Like I think Buffalo is hoping that he'll take a step forward this year. But again, to kind of take him in the 7th round, like before guys like Jordan Addison, who I know is likely going to have a 2 or 3 game suspension coming. But like the ceiling that we've seen from Addison at like 5 or 6 games last year when he was putting up 20, 25 points, like I don't know that we've seen that from Coleman in like 1 game yet this year. So to take him, and same with like Josh Downs, who went like 5 picks after Coleman, like to me, that's just crazy. But and then Joe Mixon, like Joe Mixon is such an interesting dart throw where you got him here at the 10th round. Like I know that he's going to miss some time, like miss a bunch of camp with this injury. But like reports out of Houston are that like Nick Chubb, like as the guy that's about to turn 30, he's like 29 or 30, had multiple like, surgeries on his knee. Like he just doesn't have the juice is what reporters are saying, like no burst. So to me, like taking a shot on Joe Mixon, a guy who I wasn't super high on last year, but was wrong. Like he really had a great year last year. As a guy that you could get in the 10th round and a guy that you could get 18th, 19th, 20th round, like I like taking shots on Woody Marks as well. Like I feel like that backfield has the potential to give you some strong value. I don't mind taking shots on any of those guys. I think Chubb is probably my least favorite. I have a decent amount of Chubb, but like what I have him at is at ADP like 210, 220, where he's now going in like the 140s.
Yeah, so, like you were taking a lot of shots on him prior to him signing even. So, yeah, and I think that I was just going to say that even before you added that little bit at the end, just that I think what you're laying out and how you're talking about the situation, I think that's key for people relative to the fact that like he's a guy you've talked about wanting to draft and targeting earlier in the offseason, but like not being like stuck on the outcome or on that like not getting too attached to that specific situation to where you're willing and able to take in the information that we're getting and adjust accordingly. And he can still, I mean, there's no doubt he can still give you several usable weeks. I mean, if he's on the field, that's the main thing. And he's a veteran, he'll be trusted a little bit. So if Mixon misses time, yeah, he can still help some of those rosters, but reading the market and being open to kind of what's going on, definitely interesting.
You're on the clock.
Yep. Definitely a key thing to be locked in, and aware of as you're drafting. I know you're on the clock here.
Yeah, I was, trying not to. I mean, I see that you have Hunter. I was a little, I was hoping you'd let Lawrence fall to me, not fall, but like just come to his ADP.
I have a written article that will be up on the scroll today that you should check out, and it will kind of explain the why of my thought process there. And I think, and maybe it'll make you feel a little bit better about me taking Lawrence from you. But yeah, you should for sure read it. Any subscribers read it, just about that Jacksonville passing game, kind of and thinking through that correlation and how some of those players, their outlooks interact. So I think once you read it, we'll talk off air, but like for anyone else that reads it, if you're looking at this draft, Stat took Brian Thomas at 12th overall. I have Hunter at 62 overall. And then I just took Lawrence before he could get him. But we'll talk off air, and I'll talk to the subscribers in the Discord, behind the paywall. But it's also like kind of laid out in that written article that'll be out today. So check that out when you get a chance.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I feel like I like to lean into the correlation a little bit not saying you don't, but honestly, equally as happy. I know you don't love pulling up like Penix even 10 spots because sometimes he will fall to 156. To me, I'm happy to just be done with quarterback. Take Purdy and Penix and move on.
Yeah. The next guy we can talk about, the Romeo Dobbs just went off at 138. He was, his ADP has kind of slowly been creeping up. He was up to 149 ADP entering this draft. Of course, the Packers had their family night this last weekend. Actually had some friends there. Of course, I live pretty close. But so him and Matthew Golden appeared to be pretty locked in to the, top 2 wide receiver spots. And then Jaden Reed, who was drafted 74th overall in this draft and has an ADP of 82. Basically just still in that slot receiver role, hasn't really expanded what that looks like. And they showed us last year they kind of want to be a run-heavy team. The talk out of Green Bay has been that Tucker Kraft, the tight end, will be more of a focal point. He, of course, was one of the league leader. He might have been the league leading tight end in yards after catch per reception. So a guy who is being talked up and works kind of in that same range of the field quite often as Reed. We've seen Reed have these massive spike weeks, but we've also seen him have like complete literal zeros despite playing 50-60% of the snaps. So things not shaping up well for Reed specifically, especially where he's being drafted. But for Dobbs, Kraft, and Golden, things appear to be shaping up pretty nicely.
Yeah, no, I agree. Romeo's been a guy I've been taking a reasonable amount of just because it just kind of felt like he was going to be the wide receiver 2 on this team, like on the outside. And looking back, last season, like the season before, like he was a guy that was targeted in the end zone a decent amount. Had multiple weeks with multiple touchdowns. So he's a guy that I've been taking a lot of, I know you said his ADP's up to like 149, but he was a guy going in the 150s and 160s for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And just a guy that, you're getting as your wide receiver 6 or 7 or 8 on builds. And it's just kind of hard to pass up that value. I don't mind him at his current ADP, which is like around 13th round. Like, again, still your wide receiver 6 or 7. Like, I don't mind that at all either. But yeah, I mean, I think specifically like where Reed gets drafted, I think is just wrong. Like I have shares of him generally when he falls into the 90s. I don't mind taking a couple of shots on him, specifically like on Love rosters. When I have Love, I like to have a double stack. So I don't really care if it's, I want 2 of either, Reed, Dobbs, Golden, or Kraft generally on those builds for me personally, or even I'll even mix in like Josh Jacobs into that. But yeah, I mean, in general, like Reed's not a guy that I like taking at ADP, like on his own, like, taking him at 75 just as like a one-off. For me, that's not the type of player that I want there. But to each his own.
Well, and the thing is with the ADPs, right? So with I think Golden is right about the same as him, but it becomes hot. Like Reed, he's the type of guy that would be nice if the way that the team's draft positions worked out was you got to get him as like a last piece. But the way it works out, like you almost have to take him as the first piece and then put the rest of it there around him. And that just feels pretty thin, which I think is kind of what you were getting at there. So
yeah, it's just uncertainty because again, like it's either him or Golden generally go around the same spot. So if you're taking him, you're kind of, I don't want to say you're hopeful, but you're bringing in some more inherent risk of like you're not going to be able to build. Not that you have to build a stack. I prefer it, but you're not going to be able to get it. You know what I mean? Like you just have to hope that the draft kind of falls out that way for you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Kyle Pitts went at 140. What?
Yeah, there's been a few, and that's where there's been a few head scratchers with guys being drafted in certain spots that we're not used to seeing. So we are at that time where we're going to see some things, especially with drafters has their promotion. For anyone that didn't see it, essentially the promotion is over the next over all of August. It's for a draft streak. So if you draft on 10 consecutive days in the main event, has to be a fast draft, then you will earn 1 ticket. If you do it on 20 straight days, you would earn 2 tickets for the $20 main event. And if you make it 30 straight days, it would be 3 tickets. It is August 4th. This is my 4th consecutive day. I'm planning on doing exactly what was discussed, doing the 30, one each day. Have to remind myself, put a reminder in my phone. But with that, with preseason opening up, with this promotion, you're going to see some different approaches. It's kind of been all the same people drafting against each other for a couple months now, and that's likely to change. So it'll be an interesting 31 days for sure.
Yeah, I'm intending on going 30 straight days, and I think I have to look, but I think if you do 30 straight days, they also give you like a $50 pick'em ticket. So I don't know if you have to use it as pick'em or you can use it for something else. But again, more value.
It's literally a ticket. You have to make a $50 pick'em bet, which is similar to Underdog and other sites have their pick'em products.
Yeah, but again, just more value. You know what I mean? You could certainly make it. Again, I don't do a lot of pick'ems, but you could try to go for a safer pick'em. Pick 2 guys, 3 guys where you're not taking on as much risk and realize some more of that value.
For sure.
I don't think that's what people do. I think people will go hey, let's get an 8-person, 10-person,
$50. Let's turn it into a couple grand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's we saw a couple guys here. The Shedeur Sanders, again, one of those.
I don't even see Shedeur Sanders drafted 75% of the time.
But Dante Thornton, the wide receiver for the Raiders, just went off. Sorry, my draft screen is reloading here. So give me a second. But he's had some positive hype. He went off at pick 170 here. His ADP is up to 181, which has risen considerably. But it sounds like he is getting things, getting reps with that first team offense. And after Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, a lot of opportunity there. So, I think that's one of the bigger things over the next week or so. Guys like Thornton, who, or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt for the Commanders, some of these lower draft capital players who we're getting kind of talked up a bunch. We'll get to see how real some of that is. Are they playing in the third and into the fourth quarter with third stringers in the first preseason game? That can kind of directionally tell us kind of where they really are at. Because some of those guys look really good in pads, but if Thornton's out there and playing 60% of the snaps with the ones this week, that's it's a pretty positive sign. So definitely something we'll want to keep an eye on, without a doubt. Look at you go ahead and take in Mr. Marks.
Just a man of my word.
There you go.
And plus, I knew you wanted to go De'Ami Brown there. Really leaning into that Jacksonville back stack you've got going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to read that article. I saw here you go Stafford to kind of double up on week 8 bye. be curious where you decide to go later to kind of fill that week with Richardson off the board really early here in this build.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting to me, since you were talking about Thornton for probably 90% of the draft season, maybe even longer than that. Like Beck was going in front of him in drafts, despite the fact that like reports all offseason had been that Thornton was kind of running with the ones as in kind of operating as that wide receiver too. Interesting to kind of see that ADP maybe finally shift, although Thornton's ADP is 181 and Beck is 182. So they're basically going right next to each other now. But that gap used to be a lot wider. Like Beck was going in the 160s and 170s, and Thornton was in the 220s just a couple weeks ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, Beck was like around pick 120, 130 when it first started. He was like way up there. But I mean, he was the 58th overall pick, so he was there. Trey Harris for the Chargers was, he was around pick 100 for a while. I believe. Speaking of that, we can talk quickly about Keandre Lambert-Smith, wide receiver for the Chargers, who has been drawing rave reviews. I feel like every time. Like every other day that I'm on Twitter, which I'm on basically every day, but almost every other day, I feel like I'm seeing a highlight that they're posting or a beat reporter's posting. So he's an interesting evaluation. They've, of course, Mike Williams retired. They have Ladd McConkey coming off a monster rookie year. Quentin Johnston supposedly still going to be heavily involved. Trey Harris, a great prospect, second-round pick. And then there's been talk about Keenan Allen maybe coming back, which I don't think will happen, but it's been discussed. So, there's a lot there, a lot to kind of parse through, a lot in his way. He's a guy, he kind of fits in that mold of guys that we will have to evaluate, how the next week or so looks. Have you taken any of him?
I think I have one share of him in the 20th round on a Justin Herbert build. Like I feel like there's just so much for him. Just took the guy I was going to take. I was going to go with 7 running back. I guess we'll go on here and let's see what we do with. Sorry, I'm not good at multitasking, my friend.
You good?
I just think there's so much in his way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be Ladd McConkey. It's going to be Trey Harris. I mean, we saw a good number, he still has problems with drops, but like, they're not taking Quentin Johnston off the field. Like, he had such a strong second season last year as a sophomore. Like, I just think there's so much in his way. I think best case scenario, he opens camp as the wide receiver 4 on a team that I think would prefer to run the ball. So to me, like, I've seen him start to go in this 17th, 18th round a lot, just kind of with the hype. And I don't know that I personally, unless there's injury, and even with injury, like, I don't know that he becomes like an every down wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. Like, I think he would only slot up to, being the 3rd wide receiver on the field, even with an injury in front of him. Like, I don't see the upside, but I'm, again, I've been in Alaska for a week, so I haven't really been reading and seeing what other people think. Yeah. So if I'm way off base, take it with a grain of salt.
No, I think you're good. Want to talk quick about Keaton Mitchell, the Ravens backfield. Derrick Henry, the ageless wonder, it seems, but at some point, the music's going to stop. Could this be the year? Maybe. Justice Hill kind of solidified himself, finally kind of came on after, he had some hype when he first entered the league, kind of emerged into a role. But Keaton Mitchell, he was so explosive a couple of years ago before he got injured. And now the talk is that he's going to have like a somewhat regular role, which, we'll see what that actually looks like. But certainly seems like a positive development for sure, in terms of, his outlook as a guy in that 200 range. He's probably a guy that I like better on like DraftKings or Underdog, the playoff format contests, just because I don't know that he's ever going to be like a high volume, consistent week in, week out type guy. But he does have that like skill set where, on a playoff week, he could turn 12 touches into 25, 28 points or something. So, that's one thing. One other, I guess, news and notes from this last week that I'll be keeping my eye on.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I do like taking shots on just at his current ADP, as generally my running back 6, running back 7. I think just with his we'll call it PPR upside, like Derrick Henry doesn't catch passes. So, I think that either him or Justice Hill have within their range of outcomes to give you, that 5 catch for 50 yards and a touchdown on a given week. I don't see that being like that much of a stretch personally. Like, I feel like that's in the range of outcomes.
Definitely. So I did go ahead and take Pat Freiermuth there as my third tight end. Kind of like I said, kind of leaning into this idea that, the Steelers offense, and Freiermuth, he kind of fits the mold of like, he seems like the type of guy that Aaron Rodgers would lean on, would like. Jonnu's kind of a yak guy and underneath like yards after catch guy. There's been talk about they've been using him at fullback and handing him the ball off too. And I think he makes some sense. But Freiermuth is more of like a traditional tight end. We've seen Rodgers, kind of lean on those types throughout his career. So, we get these 20-round drafts like this. To me, it's a pretty interesting situation to take some shots on a player like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think it's worth it. Certainly late in the draft, like where he goes.
And you did take with your last pick, one of your last picks, you took Cole Kmet. Did you see the highlight of him scoring a touchdown in their scrimmage?
I did not.
It was a Ben Johnson classic, like a misdirection play, and like their defense was completely lost. It was like a 25-yard touchdown. Basically, he had a walk-in. But, he's a guy that for these, for that late tight end, for me, it was Freiermuth or Kmet. We've seen Kmet have success at the NFL level, have multiple touchdown games, have 20-plus point games. And the thing about, I guess this can kind of be kind of what we wrap up, because a lot of what we've talked about has been kind of taking in the information we're getting from training camps and from these videos that you see and stuff like that. But like, how can we contextualize some of it? And so like that specific one stands out to me because it's not like, okay, Kmet, it wasn't some crazy diving catch. It wasn't some, he dusted a cornerback and shook him. And it's like, wow, like, he broke the guy's ankles, whatever. But it was a designed play that like Ben Johnson clearly, like, it's one of those things, like we've seen Ben Johnson kind of like gets in his bag and he's like got these like awesome play designs. And Kmet was on the field for that. Like he was in the spot. Colston Loveland was also on the field on that play. So it wasn't just like it was a tight end spot. But clearly he's like a part of their plans, right? So, that's, trying to find ways to contextualize, some of these videos and things that we see. I think is important and can kind of give us an edge. But those two guys, Freiermuth and Kmet, looking for ways to use those late round picks. As one of the things we talked about throughout the summer was how late in the draft, some of the running backs and stuff that you get are very high variance, especially earlier in the offseason, because some of these guys could get cut. You don't know how things will shake out. Maybe they sign somebody or they trade someone or for someone. But now as we kind of see how these backfields shape up, most of the more solid bets at running back are creeping up draft boards. And so they're being drafted earlier. So then it's like, okay, what does that leave us with these, last couple rounds? And I think some of these tight ends, Freiermuth, Kmet, Theo Johnson went right after me there. Pretty much the undisputed tight end one for the Giants. I think those are some spots where you can milk out a little bit of value at the end of drafts. And the nice thing with them is they're more predictable that they're going to be there. So you can kind of think and plan ahead in certain ways and know that some of these guys will be there. So if you wanted to, one thing I've done is pairing like both Jonnu and Freiermuth, or pairing Kmet and Loveland, just because the draft cost, is relatively low. So, that was a bit of a monologue that I went off on there at the end. But yeah, I guess, do you have any other thoughts? And then we'll just share our teams with the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the guys, I don't know that we've ever specifically spent much time talking about him, or maybe you guys did last week. To me, I feel like Taj Brooks doesn't go early enough. I don't know that I wanted to grab him at 180. I certainly would have taken him if he was there at 204, 205. Just with he's likely, an injury away from being the starting running back on a good offense.
Right. And for anyone listening who's not aware, so the Bengals did release Zach Moss. So that leaves it basically Brooks, it's Samaje Perine. It's kind of his only, I guess, competition. You could say, for, behind Chase Brown. And obviously we know that Bengals offense is super valuable. So I'll let you continue your thoughts if you've got more.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are plenty of, I think that if you look at other running backups who are in a similar situation, and we could kind of argue with that, but let's take a guy that we talked about earlier, like Ray Davis. Ray Davis becomes a 5th round pick if James Cook gets injured in the preseason. You know what I mean? If Chase Brown goes down in the preseason, I guess the point being, Ray Davis generally is the guy who goes in the 11th or 12th round. Trying to think of some others, like Trey Benson, typically in that same range.
I think the way I try to look at it, and the way that, I talked at the start about JM, how he kind of, isolates from football and then comes back and looks at it all. And it's one of those things where Taj Brooks was undrafted or drafted in the 19th, 20th rounds for a large portion of the draft cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's had this positive news. And so it's like, okay, yeah, he went in the, 16th round here. So it's like, okay, yeah, he moved up 40 spots. But if we were to just right now look at these player situations and lock in, and, you didn't have that kind of anchoring bias, where does Taj Brooks fit in? And you're right. He's probably more in that 12th,
13th round. That's where he should go.
Yeah. And he again fits that mold of player who, after this week, the window might close and he could be in that 12th, 13th round range, depending on how this first preseason game. If he runs on the field before Samaje Perine, but Perine still plays, that's whoa, or if Chase Brown sits, let's say they sit Chase Brown, but they still get the Burrow, Higgins, Chase out there just to get them a few reps. They don't have to take hits really as much as a running back would. And Brooks starts with them. He breaks a long run, or things could escalate quickly. To quote Ron Burgundy. So with that, I think we're approaching an hour here. So I'll go ahead and talk through our lineup. So first, yours 2-6-9-3 build, 2 quarterbacks, Brock Purdy and Michael Penix. The running backs are Kyron Williams, RJ Harvey, Jalen Warren, Isaac Guerendo, Roshan Johnson, and Woody Marks. At wide receiver, Brian Thomas, Drake London, Ricky Pearsall, Josh Downs, Trey Harris, Hollywood Brown, Josh Palmer, Michael Wilson, and Jalen Naylor. And at tight end, George Kittle, K. Dotton, and Cole Kmet. So a nice little San Francisco stack there, kind of a bet on that offense playing out well, and maybe, without CMC and leaning on Purdy a little bit more and Guerendo stepping in. My lineup, 3-6-8-3, quarterbacks Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, and Daniel Jones. Going to rely on Jones being the starter for Indianapolis in Week 8. Running back, Devon Achane, Zach Charbonnet, Joe Mixon, Trey Benson, Bashul Tutin, Chakori Krosky-Merritt. At wide receiver, Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Tetaroa, McMillan. I really picked the toughest names for this one. I think for the live streams, I've got to stop thinking so, about winning the contest and just winning the pronunciation battle. But Chris Olave, Travis Hunter, Jordan Addison, Diami Brown, and Nick Westbrook-Akine. And at tight end, TJ Hawkinson, Brenton Strange, and Pat Freiermuth. So, any
I like it. I think we drafted some potentials here. I always like to see some strong teams out of the two of us.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed. No other OWS flags in this draft, but it's Monday. People have things to do. Hopefully they'll get to catch up later and see it and lock in. Again, oneweekseason.com. Our preseason price drop, Best Ball Basics down to $19. There's a lot of really high quality written work, not to be biased, but all our rankings and some quality written work for strategy that you can access with that Best Ball Basics for only $19. I mean, if you're playing best ball at all, would highly recommend you hop in there. And then our Best Ball Plus, the deeper strategy and game theory stuff with our premium podcasts. Available for $59 for the rest of the year. And you get access to all the past premium content that we've been doing over the last 3 months. So, if you got a little drive on your hands or you're working out, throw the podcasts in and throw it on 1.5x speed. You can be locked and loaded in a couple days here. So, with all that said, I am Mike. He is Billy. Thank you for joining us. We are out. We will see you same time, same place, August 11th, next Monday. Peace.
1 week season.